There's a hell of a kerfuffle and an awful lot being said about nationalism and the English flag and all the rest of it at the minute. But there's an awful lot I'm not hearing being said about the true origins of Christianity and of the English flag. And that is what I'm going to wade into in this video. So here we are again with issues of nationalism and people flying the English flag. And I say again because some of you may remember that this actually started back in 2014, notably. What was the woman's name? She was a Labour MP. She was Emily Thornberry. She actually, I'll just have to look at this. It was in November 2014 during the Rochester and Stroud by-election, Thornberry. And she was the then Shadow Attorney General, which sounds like quite an important high-up position. And she tweeted a photo of a terraced house with 3 St George's flags in it and a white van on the driveway. And she ended up actually quitting over this. And because there was such an uproar, even from Ed Miliband, the then leader of the party, I think he was. Yeah, it says the tweet was widely interpreted as being a snobby and derogatory comment about the residents of the working class demographic they were perceived to represent, especially the stereotypical white van man. Backlash was immediate and widespread, including from her own party leader, Ed Miliband, who called the tweet disrespectful. Absolutely so. And it's a weird thing, isn't it? Because the Labour Party were always the people that stood up for the working class. And yeah, this, when you think about what's going on with Keir Starmer and the Labour Party now, that couldn't be further from the truth. They're absolutely pulverising the working class into the ground, and then they're slowly working on the the middle class and the upper classes as well. So everyone seems to be right in for it at the minute. But this thing of the flag, and of course this is linking in with the situation with illegal immigration and all the boats coming in and all that sort of a thing. It's, as usual, it's a lot of big things that are all connected, and it is down to poor leadership. I could do a whole video on better leadership, but yeah, let's try and stick to the point: the flag and us being a Christian nation. I personally think that the vast majority of Britons just absolutely aren't racist. We're just not a racist nation at our core. We've been multicultural. You're always going to get the minority. There is always the minority with everything. They always say, oh, it's the few that ruin it for the majority. Yeah, absolutely. That's always the case. But when you've got big media and it's been blasted at you from every angle, from every platform, now 24-hour news, you know, is accessible, and it's all fear-mongering. We should all keep that in mind. I personally seem to manage perfectly well as a citizen in this country, not watching any news. I see little snippets of headlines on the newspapers as I walk out of the petrol station, having paid for the fuel that I need to get to work. But yeah, I still manage to get through my life without being absorbed in every bit of news footage that's scaring everybody half to death. And I think that there is an agenda behind that, and that's just worth noting. So I think that ultimately, if our leaders were doing a better job of managing our money better, we are all paying for everything here, you know, it's all coming out of our taxes. I am inclined to think that people, there just wouldn't be the issues that there are. And if there's one thing, it's a very Christian value of fairness and doing right by people, loving thy neighbour as thyself. And so I think that the British people are actually particularly tolerant. We've always been that way. It's through the Christian values that have been, taking this aside from the dogma and the doctrine of the church, the actual true Christian values that the real people that are going to churches and have done for generation upon generation. Of course, that's apparently been in decline for some time, and I would say it has, but although it's quite an incline of people now seeking spiritual connection and wanting to find meaning in their life, and what the hell are we all here for? I think that we are very good at taking care of people, and ultimately yeah, we're not racist. We're very accepting, and we're used to being multicultural. And this has been a part of our life. I think we like celebrating that. But without us even realising, over time, it has been, this new thing has seeped in over a couple generations now, where we shouldn't be flying our flag, we shouldn't be proud of our nation, we shouldn't be proud to be British or English. I think that's a great shame, and it's diminishing something that's really important. And we'll get onto that in a minute. So, the origin of our flag. Now, interestingly, we all think it's called the St. George's flag, and I come to this book. This book has come out of work by Gladys Taylor, and that has come out of this book, which is so old you can't really read it, The Coming of the Saints by John W. Taylor. I don't know if John Taylor is related to Gladys Taylor. Might be, don't know. Haven't read this book yet. Read part of this on the back of reading this. This book was mentioned by a lady called, oh, what is her name? I always forget the names. Oh God, she's the little lovely adorable American lady. Sadly, she's died now. Oh my word. Dolores Cannon, that's what her name is. Okay, so let's have a looky see, page 83 of The Drama of the Lost Disciples. Now then, the Britons of our Lord's time, Lord's as in Jesus, so yeah, way back, were no more barbarian or painted savages than are the modern English-speaking nations war-mad barbarians, as the Soviet press describes us. Educationally, the Celtic British ranked among the highest to be found anywhere. We had a huge number of universities. Yes, I'm talking back pre-Roman times, before the Romans invaded here. We had the sons, maybe some daughters, but certainly the sons of the elites of the Romans and the Greeks. They came to Britain to study in our universities, and our universities were run by the Druids, and they were highly respected. There was like 60,000 students through the universities in this country. Like, you know, we're talking BC, well BC. Each city had its university apart from the special druidic seats of learning. In AD 110, oh God, how do you say this? Ptolemy, oh it is, because you don't say the P, I think, Ptolemy. Ptolemy, so in AD 110, Ptolemy states that there existed 56 large cities. Marcianus says that there were 59, and Chrysostom wrote, with the acceptance of the new order of the way, so before it was called Christianity, it was, you know, Jesus's following, they were followers of the way. He wrote, with the acceptance of the new order of the way, a greater impetus was given to the erection of seats of learning. To this great work, the converted British prince Arviragus maybe. Then a young unmarried man, along with the rest of the royal Silurian families in England and Wales, gave the fullness of their support. Quoting from the ancient British chronicles, we obtain an interesting picture of the conversion of Arviragus by Joseph. That is Joseph of Arimathea, who is the chap who is supposed to be Jesus's uncle. It was his private family tomb that Jesus was buried in. That Joseph Arimathea was the one that went to Herod and got Jesus down off the cross, put him in his tomb, and obviously, you know, we all know the story from that. It's that Joseph. And this is written, obviously, in very old English, so I think I'll put a photo up to read through this. It is interesting to note in this verse that Joseph, on the conversion of Arviragus, gave him as a sign for all nations to know the long cross as his coat of arms, then customarily worn on the shield of the chieftain. This is the first record of the cross officially becoming the symbol of a king. The reason is plain. It was given to King Arviragus as a sign of the declaration that he was the elected Christian king, and of added interest, given us, the writer states, long before St. George, the patron saint of England, was even born. This symbol, representing the flag of St. George, and known as such today, was inherited from Arviragus, so way early. And again, this is before the Roman invasion. Religious significance is still dominant, being the accepted church flag of the present Protestant church. Since the time of Arviragus, it has always been the Christian flag of the British church. Protestantism had nothing to do with it. Actually, it is a mistake to name all Christian denominations separate from the Roman Catholic Church Protestants. The name arose out of other religious sects appearing later in Britain, which protested against the ritualism of the original British church. So yeah, it wasn't called Christianity back then. In fact, the name applies to the religious sects still holding the Christian faith, who are known today as the free churches, meaning free of ritualism of any kind. Up to and during the reign of Queen Elizabeth, there was only one religion in Britain. Throughout the Isles, it was known as the British Church, not the Christian Church, not the Roman Church, certainly, and so known to the rest of the world. It was also known as the Holy Catholic Church and never Roman Catholic. When Elizabeth and her parliament struck back at the powerful forces of the Papal States, France, Spain and Rome, the Papal See was so determinedly denounced that a cleavage was created that left no doubt in the minds of people for all time to come that the British Church, as at the beginning, had no association with the Roman Catholic hierarchy. Both the British Church and the state determined on a reformation within the British Church to exclude anything and everything that bore any comparison with the Roman Catholic Church in liturgy and in ritual. Certain Roman innovations had crept into the British Church over the years. The order to reform began returning to the original concept. Therefore, it was not a protest creating Protestantism. It was, as the Historic Act declares, a cleansing reformation of the British Church. Since then, the separation has been positive. The British Church was still the national religion of the Isles. Shortly after, the religion began to take on its own native national title, becoming the Church of England, the Church of Wales and the Church of Scotland and the Church of Ireland, all holding the same communion, all designating themselves as Holy Catholics. As separate Catholic, it actually means universal, just as a side note. As Holy Catholics, as separate from Roman Catholics, the word, now it says it, the word Catholic means universal. Thus, Holy Catholic means a universal, holy Christian church, with Christ alone being the sole head of the church. The Roman Catholic Church designates itself as the universal Christian church of the Romans, with the Pope as its head. This is the British Church. This the British Church would never recognise. In the United States of America prior to the Revolution, the established church was the Church of England. Following the Revolution, the name was changed to the Episcopal Church of America and the Anglican Communion. It is still known, maintaining the original service and communion of the Mother Church. The German Lutheran Church service also observes a great similarity. All the named churches are Episcopalian, meaning a church government by bishops. In this manner, the original Christian church was created by the apostles who appointed bishops to govern the Christian church. The present Mother British Church is the only Christian church that has maintained an unbroken apostolic succession of bishops from the beginning, with all the named Episcopal churches Protestantism is claimed by many to have risen with the protests. Oh, my dyslexia is really shining through today. Reading out loud is not my strong point. Let's keep going. With the protests of Martin Luther against the abuses of the Roman Catholic Church. In this case, the word could be applied, for at that time Germany had long been apart from the Holy Roman Empire, with the Emperor of Germany the appointed representative of the Pope. Britain was never part of this empire and never nationally under the domination of the Vatican. It was from the beginning to this day British, the Church of the Covenant people. Now, the Covenant people is interesting. Now, does it say it here? It does. Christianity was founded in Britain in AD 36. The first Christian church above ground was erected AD 38-39. That was the Wattle and Daub Church in Glastonbury. And that is where Joseph of Arimathea came on the boat. After the crucifixion, him and the Bethany family, so several Marys, Magdalene, supposedly Mother Mary, and Mary of, is it Cyclops? Anyway, they came with some of the rest of the apostles, not all of them. Some of them went in a different direction. St. James, he went one way. St. John went another way. St. Thomas went to India in the end. Anyway, they arrived here in Britain and they established the very first Christian church. Again, this is before, this is literally when the Romans had crucified Jesus, and then we know after that, there was Christians being slashed and burned, and God, one emperor, was it Nero? He was burning Christians as candles, like big giant garden candles in his palace gardens. Good grief. Doesn't even bear thinking about, does it? Anyway, the Roman Catholic hierarchy was founded circa AD 350 after Constantine, and not until centuries later was the papal title created. Until then, the head of the Roman Catholic Church was still a bishop. The title of Pope was universal, The title of Pope or Universal Bishop was first given to the Bishop of Rome by the wicked Emperor Phocas in the year AD 610. This he did to spite British Cyriacus of Constantinople, who had justly excommunicated him for his having caused the assassination of his predecessor, Emperor Mauritius. Gregory I, then Bishop of Rome, refused the title, but his successor Boniface III first assumed the title of Pope. And I'm thinking Boniface, that is Saint Boniface, who was from Europe, but he did a lot in this country. The patron saint of Devon is St Boniface, same bloke. St Boniface III first assumed the title of Pope. There are other connections. So in actual fact, there's record in both these books that the first bishop was actually Linus. Now, Linus was a son of was he Averagus' son? Oh, I can't remember all the history. It's all in this book, and I'm sure we'll come to it another day, but we're trying to, as usual, this opens up different things and I start waffling on. But anyway, let's stick with it. The first pope was actually British. He was the son of the Roman, the Roman daughter was Claudius, and she married when, it wasn't Averagus, it was, I have to find for you in here, the Romans captured, because he was stitched up by some other people in a battle here. He was captured by the Romans, and him and his family were taken to Rome, where he, forgotten his name, but we'll put it in. He was paraded in front of all the Roman people, and really he would have been put to death, but he did this amazing speech about being a free man. And he wasn't put to death, and he was highly respected actually by the Roman leader at the time. And he was allowed with his family to live in Rome, and they lived there for a number of years. Some of the sons came back because they went back to join their Silurian family, the royal family, and they managed areas of the country here. But him and his family had to stay over there. And yeah, so one of them married a Roman effectively a Roman member of royal family. So yeah, and then their son Linus, I think that's right. He was the first bishop. It's probably going to say all of what I've just said here now. Jesus did not appoint Peter to the headship of the apostles, as expressly forbade any such notion, as stated in Luke 22 verses 24 to 26, Ephesians 1 22 to 23, Colossians 1 18, and 1 Corinthians 3 11. And of course now we're hearing now that Mary Magdalene is of course renounced as being a whore. She was probably, in actual fact, the top apostle. If Jesus really would have done anything as made a top apostle, I'm not sure entirely he would have done, because he wasn't about hierarchy. Returning to the history of the cross as the Christian symbol of royal heraldry and given to Arviragus by Joseph, the cross on the shield up to the present time has remained the special symbol of the sovereigns of Britain. In later times, the lion was superimposed on the shield, as shown today. The lion was the emblem of Judah, keeper of the sanctuary. But, as Christ said, it would be taken away from them and given to another who would keep the law. This symbol appearing on the British royal arms with the cross is significant. The cross denotes that the British were the first to accept Christ, and by keeping the law inherited the kingdom of God taken from the nation of the Jews. Arviragus was to carry the banner of the cross throughout the most bitterly fought battles between the Britons and the Romans, in spite of the fact that the early Christian and Roman records abound with the name and warrior fame of Arviragus. He is entirely lost to the later histories. His fame is overshadowed by his famous son Caraticus. Oh, I think it was Caraticus that was the one that was that I was just talking about, that was paraded through, and he was a free man and he did a great speech. In spite of this, Arviragus was the most powerful representative of the royal house of the Silures, and the most famous Christian warrior in history, not excepting his illustrious descendant, the Emperor Constantine. The royal boundaries of the Silures were divided into two sections. Arviragus ruled over the southern part of England, and Caradoc, or Caraticus, over Cumbria, the region that is now Wales. Each was king of his special domain, but in time of war they united under a pendragon, or a commander-in-chief, agreed upon by the people. So it was all very democratic. The people had sort of, a big sway on decision-making then. At that time, they represented the most powerful warrior clan in Britain. Arviragus ruled as Pendragon, while his cousin Caraticus was captive in Rome, conducting the war against the empire for years in Britain, and in a manner that gained for him immortal fame exceeding that of Caraticus. I'm going to get into it in another video, because there is some writing in here about so what did it say here about the Church of the Covenant people? And that is because there is history and genealogy to show now that actually, when there were the 12 tribes and they ended up with only 2 and the other 10 seemed to be scattered to the wind, they worked their way up through the lands and they came up, and it's said that they ended up in our British Isles. But anyway, we'll leave that for another video. So yeah, it's not the flag of St George as is now known. It's probably easier just to call it that. But I think it's interesting to know where we have come from. And this brings me back to the pride of our nation. So yeah, I think it's important to know where we've come from and what our true history is. And this is not something that is in our history books. Let me see, what was the other page? Oh, he has something to say about atheists here. So atheism hasn't really served us all that well, and it's interesting to note that atheists certainly in Britain hold many Christian values. They can't help but do that. It's come up through the generations. So whilst I understand that They might not have a belief in God, and they certainly wouldn't want to be attending churches. Yeah, some sort of, not the word policies is not right, but some understandings and the separation of us as spiritual beings to being just sort of completely autonomous human beings, making our own decisions and thinking that we rule it all. That is having us come unstuck, and has had us come unstuck. And you only have to look at what happened in Russia years ago when communism came in, and they were killing Christians and priests and sending them to gulags and all the rest of it. This is in quite recent history, of course, and yeah, it didn't really serve them so well. So we must be on guard against the distorters, the irresponsible, the charlatan, and the atheist. Their warped minds are motivated by bigotry, prejudice, intolerance, religious and racial hatred, which is probably what a lot of atheists, certainly the humanists, wouldn't say to be the case. They would think that they believe to be very accepting of lots of people, and I certainly know some beautiful humanists. They're wonderful people, and but yeah, there are some with when I was looking into a couple of years ago, when I was looking into the arguments of the atheists, your big old Christopher Hitchens and the other ones that the names don't spring to mind. What I noticed is they're very defensive, they're very angry people, they're very and that when you see debates between people who are on the Christian side, they're overtly literally being the Christian side and the atheist side. The Christian side in every debate never really got riled, and they seemed very collected and just calm and just like feisty in their beliefs maybe, but they weren't on the attack, whereas the atheist side really seemed to ram it home. And I think that's why, it seems to be why in debates and discussions and talks that I've listened to and watched, that that's why there's been a fall and decline in new atheism, because they're really that sort of savage stance is not, I think even for some atheists, they're really like, oh, I don't really want to be seen to be in that camp, as it were. They delight in destroying the champions of truth. What they do not understand, they scoffingly label as tradition. As if tradition, again, it's this modernism, it's, thinking that everything new, we're all much better than everything used to be, and we're much more technologically and spiritual, well, no, because spiritual doesn't come into it for them, but we're, as people, we're much more advanced than all those other people that was just traditional and myth and legend, and it should all be sort of disregarded and forgotten about. It's all low nonsense. Remember where you come from. What they do not understand, they scoffingly label as tradition. Actually, they do not understand the meaning of the word. To them, it means a myth. Disraeli eloquently said, a tradition can neither be made nor destroyed. A tradition is a truth, though garnished with degrees of exaggeration in the passage of time from repetitive retelling. As humans, we're great storytellers, and actually it's the storytelling which is why things like the Bible really, or the truth of Jesus has survived. I mean, he was just a chap. Like, if you take away the fact that if you there's a lot said now about the fact that he wasn't the Son of God, he wasn't anything sort of, amazing. He was just a human being and a great prophet and a great teacher. And they say that with great respect, but they're trying to say, he was no God figure. But I think that there was something more to it than that. Anyway, it can be clearly elucidated by separating the chaff from the wheat. Through the common practice of generalising, we are prone to use terms loosely, which easily sidetrack us into forming faulty conclusions. Arising out of this habit, we have come to generalize the meaning of the word Christian, insinuating that all followers of Jesus were known by that name from the beginning. In actual fact, the name Christian had not then been coined. It was not created until years after his death. To the Judean, the Greek, and the Roman world, the early adherents of the new gospel were known as followers of the way. Yeah, as I said. Jesus had said, "I am the way." To all his devotees, he was the way. In their devotions, they referred to Christ and his spiritual philosophy as the way. So the title Christian is claimed to be originating at Antioch, and the reference there is Acts, Book of Acts 11:26. No, it's Acts 1, chapter 1, 11:26. Or is it Acts 2? Anyway, I need glasses. Originating in Antioch, following the enthusiastic reception given to the disciples who fled there in AD 36. It is nearer to the truth that the inhabitants of this ancient city referred to the converts as little Christs and little men of Christ. These labels are by no means a correct interpretation of the name Christian. The word is a composite of Greek and Hebrew. Christ is the Greek meaning consecrated, they also say anointed, and Ian, so Christ Ian, the bit on the end of the word, is from the Hebrew word am, as in I am, meaning a person or people. Therefore, the true meaning of the word Christian and Christians would be a consecrated person or consecrated people. Early ecclesiastics and historians definitely state that the word is of British origin. Philologists also support its claim to British invention, created by the British priesthood, among whom the Christian movement gained its first and strongest impetus. Substantiation is found in the statement by Sabellus, AD 250, who wrote, "The word Christian was spoken for the first time in Britain by those who received the word from the disciples of Christ." So there we go. This book is just packed with fascinating stuff. Even if you're questioning all of this and you want to know more, there's going to be an upsurge in crikey, I've only got 36 subscribers or 35 subscribers. But one day, there might be lots of people watching my videos. And I hope that is the case, because this is part of the truth that really needs to come out. And I think it really helps people to understand their origins and their story, and really be able to read things like this to come to their own decisions about things. Because if you only know one side of things, because that's what you've been taught and that's what you're being blasted with now, or truth is being squashed out and diminished and hidden, then people aren't knowing the full picture of it all. It is interesting to note that the Bethany group who landed in Britain was never referred to by the British priesthood as Christians, nor even later when the name was in common usage. They were called Coldies, as were the other disciples who later followed the Josephian mission in Britain. Okay, and it goes on and on. So in the end, there'll be an upsurge, hopefully, in people reading this book, because it's got some really interesting stuff in it. So So there's a lot of talk at the minute about the Fabian Society and how they've planned this for a long time, and it's been a slow insurgence, a slow seepage into all areas of our government and our teaching faculties, and anyone that has any sort of influence on policy and society and culture in our country. And it's this slow seepage of the word homogenizing is what comes to mind for me. Now then, imagine if we really do become completely homogenized and we're all just meant to be this just sort of grey mass. And it would be grey. There'd be no colour, there'd be no richness, there'd be no difference. difference, I am always saying this, difference is richness. That's the two words for me. It's like difference is, again, because we're blasted with stuff to be put in a place to be separated from others, and I mean other cultures and and other peoples and other ethnicities and other religions and faith paths, and it's like we're constantly being set against each other in two groups, and this is just no good. I think that we perfectly well can live together, and yeah, like I said, I think it's a case of if everyone is treated fairly, and if the people who are paying into this country's taxes are actually receiving what they should be getting, and I think it is a case of should be getting, there's ways of managing our money to make sure that the poor are provided for, that the people, and when I say poor, I mean people that there are peaks and troughs in life, and you can very quickly find yourself, if your business fails or a marriage breaks down, or different things can happen in our lives that can thrust us into poverty. This has happened to myself years ago. Well, not all that long ago, but me and my daughter lived in abject poverty for, God, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And my mental health was shot, and I was still trying to work and run a business and earn money to support me and my daughter. And I did rely on a council housing benefit, and I relied on tax credits. Without that, I wouldn't have got through. Just writing everyone off as sort of lazy bummers who just couldn't give a toss and can't be bothered, and they're lazy and all the rest of it. These days especially, that is not the majority of the people that are living in poverty and scraping around to get a meal and provide for their families. That is just not the case now. So I think we need to all adjust our attitudes on that, and have an understanding that, any one of us, it's a very fine line between being very comfortable and having it all and losing everything. It can happen very easily. So maybe we should all have a little bit more compassion for people in that situation. And so taking a pride, sorry, I keep looping around here, my mind does tend to jump from thing to thing. But if we can't tell, so the Fabian Society, yeah, that's what I was saying, the Fabian Society, they're trying to make us all homogenized, and over time they have managed to diminish our pride in our country, in our culture, to the point that actually when I was years ago, when I obviously when I was younger, stupid thing to say, I was not proud to be English at all. And I'm wondering now if this has come sneakily in the back door into my appreciation of being English, and my understanding of where I come from and what it means to be English and British. Because, I mean, there's one thing you say, well, what is our culture? Morris dancing. Oh, crikey. Everyone can have a bit of a laugh about Morris dancers and just think, oh God, they're banging people with a pig's bladder, and they're men skipping around with hankies and bells and whacking sticks and all of that. Now, if you go to Wales and any of our other Celtic nations, Isle of Man, Scotland, Ireland, they are so proud, and even down here in Cornwall, so proud of the Celtic background and heritage. And with that comes the songs and the dances and the costumes and the language, and it was slowly squashed out. And now it's almost like the same is happening, that we just shouldn't take a pride in being British and being English. And I think that's a real shame, because imagine when you go on holiday, right? If we were all homogenous and it was all very grey, going on holiday, and apart from taking that time to relax and the weather's better and you're sitting on a beach, lovely, we all need that rest time. We like to go on excursions, and lots of us like to go and see historic buildings and go to evenings where they have Greek dancing, or going to a food tasting thing of the food of that culture. And if that was all squeezed out, God, it would just be dull, wouldn't it? All our buildings would look the same. We'd all look the same. That is happening. You only have to look around in different countries to see architecture is all pretty homogenous and dull. And yeah, so I think people have uproar about mosques coming in. Now, I think if there are mosques, and there should be, because if we have other people from other ethnicities and cultures and religious paths living here, then they need to be able to go to their place of worship as much as anyone else. What you can't have and shouldn't have and don't want to have is an uprising of any other peoples over another people's because of faith. And I think especially it's you're just all coming from the same wellspring of God, and some real, certainly the extremists, but the real fundamentalists would hate me for saying it, crack on. It's a shame, because it is actually a richness, and as an interfaith minister, I've learned so much about the similarities, the commonalities, and yeah, it's just about loving one another. And essentially that is bottom line, right? Bottom line, whether you go to church or you don't, whether you want to have a faith path or you don't, bottom line is Christ was like, love thy neighbour as thyself. Now therein lies a problem, because when you don't have a pride in who you are and your nation and your heritage and your culture or your house or the work that you do, when you don't have a pride in that, you don't care. You just like, and then if nobody cared, well, then everywhere would look awful. There's litter everywhere. Why is there litter everywhere? Because some people don't care, and that's a real shame. They don't take a pride in where they are. And when you like even just fixing potholes in the road, and then they don't do it very well, and then there's a bit of a lip, and so then because there's so many potholes and they're being repaired, and then you're driving over all these lips and it's like bang, bang. And I just think, oh, what a shame that even that guy that was fixing the road, or those guys, didn't take a pride in what they were doing. Toilet cleaners, road fixers, bin men, all those little jobs, big those people up. Years ago at Christmas, people used to give their bin men and their postmen and people, they used to give them a little gift or a card, a box of chocolates or something to share with their team. And I'm sure that helped towards taking a pride in their job. So if you don't take a pride, it comes down to not, you can't love others if you're not loving yourself. And I think this is a big downfall. Love is just the ultimate thing. They speak of God being love. Okay, so let's say he's not a man in the sky. I think we all know, well, I don't know, actually, I've done some videos on this and I'm a little bit in two minds. Depends what we decide God is. But certainly, whether you want to call it an energy or spirit or God or whatever you want to call it, there is a strong thing that is love, the power of love. And this is preached throughout all faith paths. And that's really, folks, this is what it boils down to. If you can't love yourself and you don't love yourself, you're really going to struggle to send love out into the world for others. And maybe this is where we've come to. Atheism, modernism, this has all been happening over a really long period of time. And now here we are. And yeah, poor leadership, money being used in a really corrupt way is not helping. People not being allowed or positively encouraged to take a pride in their nation. Taking a pride in your nation does not equal being racist. And I think, welcome in people from other, legally, yes, we don't want willy-nilly everybody coming in. It needs to be managed properly, just from the practical point of view, really, of resources and, yeah, loving one another. It's certainly not helping the way things are portrayed in the media. And in actual fact, when we rely on that as being the thing that's telling us what we need to know, yeah, that's not going to be helpful. So I think there's nothing wrong. In fact, I think we all need to have a pride in our nation. And when other people from other countries and other ethnicities and other cultures come into our country and come to live here, as many generations have been doing so, and live here perfectly well and love being in Britain and love us for the fact that we are humane and we have democracy, although yeah, that needs to be held on to. We should welcome their cultural differences, and it's all a part of the rich tapestry. And we learn to love ourselves and we learn to love each other. That is the way. I'm not entirely sure that Jesus really wanted to put himself at the head of any church. Absolutely not. But hey ho, yeah, Christian faith and churches, there's been awful atrocities and all kinds of things going on over time. But history also shows that we are a nation of people who are very tolerant, very giving, very charitable, and that has come out of Christian values, and that is something that Jesus would drive home and he would be proud to be the head of, I believe. Peace be with you. Do with that what you will. If you've got anything from my wafflings at all, do please hit that like button, and God knows, do please subscribe. It's a numbers game, and I do think that I'm delivering stuff here that people really need to hear, and it's sort of a message of our time. So do please share these videos around. All these things, to the God of YouTube, that's what that God loves. He loves that, and that's how we get spread around, and we all join together in loving one another, and whether we're Christian or not, living by Christian values, because there's nothing wrong with them. So yeah, do please like, subscribe and share. Thank you.